It never occurred to me in my wildest dreams growing up that I would become a therapist. It never occurred to me that I would teach college students. And it's led to this place where I get to educate people about all sorts of kind of life skills topics at the college level and help students figure out about stress and figure out studying and figure out how to navigate the alcohol and drug scene that happens there, and what is sexual assault, and what a gift to be able to talk to young people about that.
Jocelyn Arild is a therapist, a teacher, devoted wife, and mother of two. She experienced sexual assault as a young woman on multiple occasions at the hands of trusted acquaintances.
So we go to a party in Chico, and we get there. My friend and I get there and realize it's a semi-formal party, and we have not brought clothes for a semi-formal party. So the girls next door in the apartment give us clothes, and for the first time in my life, I wear a red dress.
Jocelyn was raped by an acquaintance who had been part of the group that attended the college party together that night. Home from the military to visit, he had promised to look out for Jocelyn and keep her safe after she had expressed concern that she may have had too much to drink.
I can recall the struggle, and I can recall at one point realizing, if I just act like I like this, it'll be over. I think it's that kind of deer in headlights thing that happens, that, I need to just cooperate, because if I don't cooperate, this is going to go on for I don't know how long. So I would kind of rather just get this over with. So I pretended to like him having sex with me. Here I had borrowed this lovely dress from this person, and her door didn't lock, so I walked right into her apartment, which was next door, and just carefully laid this dress out and tried to smooth it and tried to make sure there was nothing on it, and just there goes the evidence, right? And I later wrote a piece called "Leaving the Red Dress Behind," because in that moment I left behind the person I had been up until that day, that night. I left behind my sexuality. I left behind my sense of my own body and self, and my identity, my whole entire identity, I left in that place. My sense of safety in the world was completely altered. I had identified as strong, as feeling sexually empowered in my relationships, as feeling in charge of my body, and that experience ended that existence. My boyfriend at the time said, well, if it really happened, you'd go to the police department and report it. Well, that was the last thing I was going to do, because I couldn't even make sense of what happened. I couldn't even reconcile, how did that happen and what does that mean? Thank goodness that a friend of mine stopped by and just believed me and just got it and didn't question that I was telling the truth or not, and just sat with me. And recently, when I told that friend that I was going to do this, I came to the understanding of that friend felt like he hadn't done enough. And he had.
In our interview, Jocelyn spoke eloquently about her process of coming to terms with her experiences and the words and actions of people around her that helped promote her healing.
I felt like I was trying to put myself back together as though I was doing a puzzle on a table, except that the puzzle pieces weren't for one puzzle. It was like there were two puzzles on the table that I was, my old self, the red dress, the person I had left behind, and the new self. So I had very much dissociated from who I was before, and I couldn't be her. I could not be her because she is not safe. I got into therapy and started getting this feedback that was more positive and more acknowledging and more believing. At that same time, I had also been getting other feedback. I had been told it was my fault, that I shouldn't have drank, all of those things that we tell people, right, when they've been the ones who got hurt, rather than turning our gaze to the person or the reasons why it may have happened. My career path changed as a result. So as a result of getting into counseling, as a result of having this, I suddenly decided I was going to be a therapist. Mostly because I just wanted to get better. And I just found more supportive environments. And I stopped hanging out with the people who weren't kind about it. And I think at some point as a therapist, I realized my language changed around how I talked about sexual assault in the room. I realized I started to speak more about the ambivalent feelings, about when we've had this experience. Not saying I've had this experience, but just making it a more universal experience that you're not alone. That was transformative for me, and then seeing people recover. When someone knows this about you in the most deep and profound way, and it wasn't just, a casual conversation, when someone knows who you were before the sexual assault, they can hold that for you as you get back to yourself. When I told one of my closest friends that I was going to be a part of this project, I just sort of blurted it out because that's kind of who I am. I just kind of blurted it out, and the timing wasn't great, and she just teared up. And there was something in her response, the warmth of her response, the depth of her understanding, and knowing who I was before, who I was in the red dress, and holding those parts of my identity that when you are going through this, it's very hard to hold, and it's very hard to make sense of. And I feel so far and adrift from that person, that girl. And she knows that girl, and she's not going to let me get away with dismissing that girl. And I think there's richness and depth and incredible beauty in having those people in our lives that can support us in a way that is beyond words. I didn't really realize that the experience felt so fragmented to me, like that puzzle, right? Like I'm still, where are all the pieces of this puzzle? And it feels like, oh yeah, I got the puzzle. I got it figured out, and it's put back together. If that's kind of the visual metaphor, I would say, that it feels like, oh, I do have this together, and I'm ready for the next step to, work as an activist, therapist, or to talk about it and not feel ashamed anymore, and trust that this is a good world where people don't want this to be happening, and they're gonna get on board so we can stop it. So that feels empowering. I sort of feel like the girl in the red dress gets represented, right? She gets to show up to the party, and she's me, right? It's that full integration of, having dissociated and being one.
Today, Jocelyn is a survivor and a thriver. She has turned her experiences of trauma into sources of empowerment and inspiration for her work as a professional and a parent. We are honored to know Jocelyn and be part of her ongoing, powerful journey.